tell you what, I've been dying to talk to you all day about these bees. Can we talk about the bees? I want to talk about the bees. So the bees I'm going to talk today are about why are they so important to all of us, and how they should be acknowledged for how important they are. Today we're going to talk about the hierarchy they have in the hive, how they help the ecosystem, and how we can make a little money off these little bees. And so right into the first point, the hierarchy of the hive. They basically go in 3 ranks. The first one is the queen, the most important bee in the hive. Now she doesn't have too many jobs. She basically is in the hive at all times and is bred to have more bees for the hive. And she does do a few decision-making things for the hive, but she doesn't really have many jobs for it. And the second level to it is the drone. And it's the only male in the hive, and it's the freeloader of the hive. It literally has no other job besides to breed with the queen. And once it does breed with the queen, they just die. So they really just don't have any jobs in the hive. And the last one, which is the most important in everybody else's eyes, is the worker bee. And they are actually divided into 3 subgroups of the worker bee. The first group is the nursery worker bee, and those actually care for the queen and the eggs that the queen lays for. So it takes care of all the babies, hence the name nursery bee. Second one is the guard bee, which is at the center of the opening of the hive, and they basically just guard the opening. And any bee that comes in, they feel each other's antennas, and they actually can recognize their scent on it, and if it detects any scent that it doesn't recognize, it'll just straight up attack it. It doesn't want anything in the hive that it doesn't remember. And the last worker bee is the scout bee. The scout bee basically goes out and looks for patches of flowering plants, and it sees this, goes back to the hive, tells everybody else that there's a lot of pollen in this area, and they do that through a series of movement and dances, and that communicates to the rest of the hive where these flowers are. And another interesting thing they do is when a beehive swarms out and the queen is in the middle of the swarm of bees, they usually attach to like a tree branch, and there's this big swarm of bees out there. If they're looking for a new hive, they will they'll attach to a tree branch, and then they'll send scouts out to look for new locations for this hive. Multiple scouts go out, they find suitable locations for this next hive, they come back, and they all dance to describe this location. And the queen and the rest of the hive basically vote out each other's section. So they have a voting system on their next hive, which I think is pretty cool. This information came from an article from 2015. Theory, Tamik, and Natalie Moriu put out an article about that was titled "Decision Making in Swarms." Now we're on to the second point, which is how they help the ecosystem. And the ecosystem is helped out mainly because of how proficient they are at pollinating. They can actually carry their body's weight in pollen back to the hive. Most of the time they take about 10 trips a day. And they use this pollen to make honey and basically just for their food with the queen and everybody else in the hive. And this fact came from Herren in 2012 from a book actually called The Science of Animals, or Animal Science and Agriculture. And they really just pollinate basically everything in the ecosystem. There are a few other pollinators like butterflies, but the bees are really the most efficient at it. And that basically leads right into my third point, which is how they can help us generate money for our economy by helping their ecosystem. So a lot of beekeepers keep what they call, they're basically bee boxes, but they call them supers. And they have frames of honeycombs in there, and they throw the bees in, and they make honey and what have you for the hive. And then they can harvest the honey and beeswax out of that. But And that can make us a decent profit. But the biggest way you can make a profit off of your bees is you can take your super and go to someone who has like an apple orchard or a fruit plantation, and you can ask them if they want these bees to go out and pollinate your crop, because by them pollinating your crop, you're having a much higher yield than you would without. So they take their supers, they usually ship them on semi-trucks, and they take them out and they put them into the orchard and just let them go wild and pollinate all around. And that basically came from an article from 1999 by Thomas D. Seeley and Susannah C. Buhrman, that's titled "The Floral Resources Used by Honeybees and an Evasive Agricultural Landscape." Now that we've gone through our 3 points of the hierarchy of the bees, how they can help our ecosystem, and how we can make a profit off the bees, I hope you could all see the bees are very important to every single one of us. Thank you.